Economics paper 2 of 2, May, June 2019. I'm just going to quickly read them, okay? Premium Friday. At the start of February 2017, the Japanese government introduced its Premium Friday scheme. This encourages employers to allow their workers to leave work at 3 o'clock, which is 15, on the last Friday of each month, without experiencing any reduction in their wages. So basically, it means that they are able to leave work at the end of the last Friday of every month without them taking off their salary or taking that amount they work from them. The Japanese government wants to reduce the number of hours people work. One reason is to improve the health and so possibly the productivity of workers. So basically, here they are thinking that reducing reducing the hours of work, might basically increase productivity. That is the point they are making there. So one, I think it's clear. So when your health is improved, your productivity will definitely increase.
Yes.
So the figure 1.1 shows the average number of hours worked and productivity, GDP per hour worked in US dollar in 6 selected countries. So we have countries like France, Germany, Japan, Mexico, Russia, and South Korea. The average hours worked per week is in the black shaded, and the productivity per hour worked is the one slanted or just crossed. So let me just analyze this graph as I'm seeing the graph. The graph is saying that countries, based on what I'm seeing here, it's showing that countries with higher average hour worked have less productivity. That is basically what it means. But let's go down. So you said nearly 1/4 of Japanese workers worked more than 50 hours a week, and some workers more than 25 hours overtime a week. The average Japanese worker only takes half of their paid holidays. So that means they don't really go on holiday. So nearly 20 years of low economic growth and deflation have created a sense of job insecurity. There's deflation in the economy, and the economy is in decline. Trade unions in Japan have been concentrating on trying to achieve shorter working hours. So the trade union of the country, the trade union of Japan are trying to reduce, are focusing on ensuring that the work hour in Japan is reduced. The government thinks that working fewer hours would give people more time to bring up a child and look after elderly relatives. Japan birth rate has fallen every year for the last 36 years, and at a faster rate than the fall in the death rate, leading to a fall in the size of the population. So basically here, they're talking about natural change in population, which means it's either birth rate or death rate. The government hopes more leisure times will encourage an increase in consumer spending. Higher consumer spending would benefit Japanese firms and would reduce the chance of deflation returning. The initial response to Premium Friday was not promising. At the end of February 2017, only 4% of Japanese workers left early. In the longer run, however, the scheme may be more successful. This is because unemployment in the country had fallen, with only 2 million out of the labor force of 66 million being unemployed at the end of February 2017. Low unemployment increased job security, usually increases wage. Low unemployment increased job security and usually increases wages. In Japan's case, however, the high demand for labor has been matched by a high supply. That means there's equilibrium between demand and supply of labor. Some of this higher supply has come from migrant workers, but a greater proportion has come from more Japanese people working past retirement age and more women working. So we go to the first question. The first question says, identify using it from the extracts 2 factors that influence an individual choice of occupation. Based on the extracts, an individual choice of occupation will be based on the wages being taken, that's the wage rate, and maybe job security.
Yes.
I think it's clear, or maybe holidays given.
Yeah.
All right. So that was the first point there. Then we go to question 2. Question 2 says, explain using information from the extract and opportunity cost of working. So when you go back to the first, let's say the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth paragraph, it says the government hopes more leisure time will encourage an increase in consumer spending. Higher consumer spending would benefit Japanese firms and would reduce the chances of deflation. The point here is that, now check the fourth paragraph. The fourth paragraph talked about government thinks that working a few hours would give more people more time to bring up a child and look after elderly relatives. So there's opportunity cost here. So the opportunity cost of working is that you give up on taking care of your child, or give up on taking care of the elderly ones. So the question, what you first have to do is you define what opportunity cost is, which is the next best alternative forgone. That is opportunity cost. So the opportunity cost here is the child care, that the time devoted for the child care will not be there if you are working. Is either you work or you devote your time for the child or the children, or is either you work or you devote your time for your elderly ones. So that's the opportunity cost there. I think
is it like
is the next best alternative forgone. The choice that was not made.
Or the cost of making a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is clear. We go to C. They say calculate using information from the expert the number of Japanese workers who left work early on Premium Friday. And based on the information, they said 4% of. They said 4%.
Yeah, only 4% of Japanese workers left early.
Yeah, I want to choose the paragraph.
The last one.
The last paragraph, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they said only 4% of Japanese workers left early in the longer run. So basically, the workforce of Japan was 66 million, but 2 million, it has fallen by 2 million. So we have the percentage, that's 4% of the number of workforce in Japan.
64.
Which is 64. So 4 over 100 multiplied by 64 million. That gives us 2,560,000. 2560 is the same. Yeah. That's done. So go to question D. Explain using information from the extract why the size of Japan's population has fallen in recent years. So the size of Japan's population has fallen. I wrote the population of Japan has fallen over the years based on the following reason. One, the Japan's birth rate continues to fall over 36 years, compared at a faster rate than the death rate. Do you understand?
Yes.
So that's the first point. Then the second point I wrote is that a fall in death rate means that people now live longer years. People live longer years than what they used to live. That is why you are having high numbers of people after retirement, they are still working. Do you get the second point there?
Yes.
Then the third point is about, I wrote a fall in birth rate might be as a result of having fewer children. Because there's no time to take care of children. A lot of people, both men and women, they work. So there's no time to think of having children. So as a result of that, there's low birth rate in Japan. That's the third point I make. And the last point I'm making here is about job insecurity. For job insecurity, because there's no job in Japan, a lot of Japanese might emigrate to other countries to seek for greener pasture. So as a result of that, the population of Japan would fall. I think that is clear. So we go to question E. They said, analyze using figure 1.1, the relationship between average hours worked and productivity. So the first thing you have to do is to define what productivity is. Productivity is output divided by the labor, or the number of workers, which is labor input. So, however, I wrote here that there is an inverse relationship between hours of work and productivity. Why? Because when you check the numbers of hours worked based on the countries we have here, the more hours they work, the less productivity they have. Look at, so here I wrote, I said, I said, there is an inverse relationship between hours of work and productivity, which means one, working longer hours reduce productivity as workers might get tired. So let's forget about the graph. Let's talk about individuals. When you work long hours, it reduces your productivity, it reduces what you can give out. So that's the first point I'm making here. So the second point is going to the figure 1. So the figure 1 said 1.1, based on what I'm saying, let's take France and Germany. France has the lowest average hours worked per worked, and the France and Germany has the lowest average hours worked per week.
Germany is lowest.
So both Germany and France, they have the lowest. And when you check their productivity per hour, it is the highest. So that means there's inverse relationship between hours worked and productivity. That's the second point. I think it's clear. Is it clear, please?
Yes, sir.
And the third point I make is about Mexico. Mexico has the longest working hour and the lowest productivity. So, which is talking about how work hour is inversely related to productivity. I think that is clear.
Yes.
So we go to 1F. So for 1F, they said, discuss whether or not a cut in income tax would stop deflation. First, you have to explain what income tax is. Income tax is a direct tax levied on individual income, which could even be sole traders or partnerships. So what happens when there's a cut in income tax? A cut in income tax means disposable income of household will increase. So as disposable income increases, what happens? Spending will increase. Remember, the question is talking about how income tax, an increase in a cut in income tax would stop deflation. And what is even deflation? Deflation is the persistent fall in the prices of goods and services. I think it's clear. So an increase in income tax would increase government, or it will increase household spending. And household spending increases, aggregate demand, the total aggregate demand in the economy would what? Would rise.
Yeah.
So if aggregate demand increases in the economy, prices will increase, leading to demand pull inflation. So deflation is stopped there. That's the first point. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
So the third point I make is about higher demand for goods. Higher demand for goods will encourage firms to produce more. Yes or no?
Yes.
By producing more, they will need to expand their production scale. Expanding their production scale might mean that they need to employ more workers. So employing more workers will increase employment. Yes or no? And when employment increases,
unemployment will reduce.
Unemployment will reduce, spending will increase.
Yes.
Demand for, do you understand?
Yeah.
And because employment is increasing, firms might want to do that by encouraging workers with high wages. Yes or no? So encouraging workers with high wages will increase the cost of production. Cost of wages, yes or no?
Yes.
That will lead to cost push inflation, increasing the price of goods and services. Is it clear?
Yes.
Is it clear, please?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, that's about that. Then we go to 1G. They said, I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. Explain using information from the extract why wage rate rises have been low in Japan. Wage rises has been low in Japan, one, because there's job insecurity in Japan.
There's deflation.
Inflation or deflation.
Deflation.
So the first point is that there's job insecurity in Japan. As a result of that, workers are even reluctant to ask for wage increase, because if they do, they might be kicked out.
Yes.
Do you understand? That's the first point. Then the second point I'm making is about the trade unions. The trade unions are making efforts to increase, to reduce the work hour. So they are not focusing on wage increase. So as a result of that, they are all their efforts is based on reducing the work hour. And you know, with trade union, they can always influence the wage rate in the economy, but they are not focusing on wage rate. Rather, they are focusing on work hour reduction. So that's the second point. Then the third point I made is about, I said there's a high proportion of women in the labor force, which means it is easier to employ workers. So that's about that. So we are in 1G, right?
Yeah, the third point, I think so.
Yeah, I said there's high proportion of women in the labor force. Based on what we read here, there's high proportion of women in the labor force, which means employers do not need to increase salary, because if the men are asking for more salary, they give the job to women. Women will not ask more salary like men will do. So do you get the point I'm making here? Do you get it or not?
Okay, maybe they want to increase women increase. They want to increase them.
Women get less than men most of the time.
Oh yeah.
So that's the point. I think it's clear.
Yes.
And the last point is about, they said higher demand for labor is met with higher supply of labor. So it is at equilibrium. So there's no point increasing the wage rate.
Yeah.
You get the
You
point.
don't have a reason to agree.
Is it clear?
Yes.
So that's about 1G. Then we go to 1H.
Yes.
They said, discuss whether or not Japan will benefit from employing more. They said, discuss whether or not Japan will benefit from employing more migrant workers. So when we talk about migrant workers, what are we talking about here? We're talking about, for example, me coming into Libya. So will it benefit Libya or not? That is the point they are making. So yeah, they said the size of labor force might increase with high productivity. The first point about allowing migrants into your country is that it increases it increases the number of workforce. The number of labor force in your country increases.
Productivity will increase.
The productivity will increase.
GDP will increase. Yes.
Yeah, GDP productivity will increase. Yes, that's the first point. Then the second point I wrote is about an increase in productivity may increase output and economic growth. So if productivity is increasing, output will increase and it will lead to economic growth. That's the second point. Then the third point is about the aggregate demand. So because productivity is increasing, aggregate demand in the economy would rise. Because more workers are coming in, they would demand for goods and services. As a result, revenue for firms will increase. Do you get it?
Yes.
Then the fourth point I make is about Japan's population. Based on what we read, Japan's population is falling. So if Japan's population continues to fall and the supply of labor continues to fall as a result, there will be shortage of workers, which is not good for Japan.
Yes.
I think it's clear. And the last point I make is about migrant workers coming with skills and different ideas, which could also help the Japanese economy.
Yes.
I think it's clear. So that's done. Question 1 is done. We go to question 2. They said the market for cars and tires are closely related. The 5 largest tire firms used to make 66% of all tires. The entry of more than 250 Chinese firms has reduced the global market share of the largest 5 firms to less than 50. This also changed the price elasticity of demand for individual firm tires. Some of these tire firms are state-owned enterprises, and some are in the private sector. So the first question says, identify 2 types of business organization that operate in the private sector. So we could talk about the sole trader, we could talk about partnership, we could talk about multinationals, we could talk about cooperatives. I think that is clear. Private limited company or public limited company, they are all private sector organizations. So we go to the second question. The second question says, explain what effect more firms producing tires would have on the price elasticity of demand of individual firm tires. So as more firms enter the market, it means supply of tires in the market will increase. As supply in the tire increases, if a firm in that market increases the price of its tire, consumers might start switching to buy from other firms selling tires. As a result of that, the price elasticity of demand for tires will be price elastic. Is it clear?
Yes.
Question C. Analyze using the demand and supply diagram the effect of an increase in demand for cars on the market of tires. So for the market for tires, this is called so the third question says, analyze using the demand and supply diagram the effect of an increase in demand for cars on the market for tires. So here we're talking about the market for tires, which has definitely increased based on the numbers of firms coming into the industry, right? So what happens? The supply for tires, let me see. They said analyze using a demand and supply diagram the effect of an increase in the demand for cars on the market for tires. So demand, we're talking about tires and cars now. Tires are complementary goods for cars. So for tires, they are complementary goods for cars. So if the demand for cars increases, the demand for tires would increase, definitely, because they are complementary goods.
So it's direct
relationship.
Yeah.
I think that is clear.
Yes.
So if the demand for tires increases, the price for tires would definitely increase.
Yeah.
So shifting the demand curve, because this is a price of complementary goods. And the price of complementary goods is part of factors that affect changes in demand. Factors that lead to a shift in the demand curve. If it was about price of the product, it would have been movement in demand curve. But for this, we are talking about factors that affect, factors that cause a shift in the demand curve, which is price of substitute, price of complementary goods, taste and fashion. So one of them is factors of complementary goods now, price of complementary goods, which is the tire to the car. So an increase in the demand for cars will increase the demand for tires, leading to an increase in the price of tires.
Yes. So
shifting the demand curve rightward from D to D1, and the price from P to P1, and the quantity supplied, the quantity demanded in the market from Q to Q1. I think it's clear.
Yeah.
So it is graphically represented as this. This is the graph. Okay, so we go to question 2D. They say, discuss whether a large firm will earn more profit per unit sold than a small firm. Yes. Why? Why do I say that? One, large firms exploit economies of scale. And if there's economies of scale, like purchasing economies of scale, large firms will have reduction in their average cost of production. That is the first point. The second point is that reduced cost of production would allow large firms to sell at a lower price, or even selling at the same price. Selling at a lower price or at the same price would still make them to make more profit because their cost of production has reduced. That's the second point. The third point I make is about a large firms will enjoy large advertisements. They might be able to invest more on advertisements. And if they're able to spend more on advertisement, that means their popularity, they can reach more audience than smaller firms. And that will increase their revenue. And that will even improve their brand. Is it clear?
Yes.
And the last point I make here is about large firms having more market power than smaller firms. So they have the ability to stop new firms from coming in, or they can buy over smaller firms through acquisition or takeover. Is it clear?
They have more market share.
Yeah, is it clear? So we go to question 3. They said there was a global surplus of steel in 2017. I wrote numbers on them. Yeah, I wrote numbers on each page.
Okay.
So you get it arranged that way. There was a global surplus of steel in 2017, in mid-2017, and US. And okay, the US government considered imposing tariffs on steel imports to protect its declining steel industry. Cheap imports from other countries were reducing employment in the US steel industry. The pattern of US employment was also being affected by improvements in education. Identify 2 methods of trade protection other than tariffs. We talk about embargoes or quotas. Done. Question B. Explain how market forces will eliminate a surplus and a shortage. They said, explain how market forces will eliminate surplus or a shortage and the shortage. So for the market forces to eliminate surplus, what is surplus? Surplus means demand, supply exceeds demand. So if supply exceeds demand, that is excess supply. That is the point you're making there. So for excess supply, you can also reduce the price. As soon as you reduce the price, the quantity demanded would rise. Surplus will be eliminated. That is for surplus. Therefore, shortage will be as a result of demand exceeding supply. So if demand is exceeding supply, the market forces will increase the price of the product. Increasing the price of the product will reduce the demand for the product.
Yes.
Shortage is eliminated. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, it is.
Go to question C. Analyze how improvement in education can affect the pattern of employment. Improvement in education. Here I wrote improvement in education can affect the pattern of employment in the following ways. 1, workers become more skilled, which makes them attractive to employers. With more education, with improvement in education, you have more skills. Then employers would want you, so you become attractive to employers. That's the first point. Yes. The second point is that workers may be able to seek better jobs with better pay, because now you are equipped. You have the qualification needed, so you can seek for better employment. I think it's clear. Yes. Or better work or better remuneration, which is salary. The third point is that it will increase employment. Based on what we are seeing there, they're talking about. Go back to the third point. They said steel import to protect is declining. The industry, the steel industry, which is the secondary sector, is declining. So with improved education, skills and knowledge will come. So the secondary sector employment would increase, or tertiary sector would increase. So primary sector would fall, because in the primary sector you need less education and training. It's farming, fishery. You don't need more education for that. Yes. So there will be increase in employment in the tertiary and the secondary sector. I think it's clear. Yes. That's about that. All right. That's question C. We go to question D. Are you there? Yeah. They said, discuss whether or not the imposition of import tariffs by a country will reduce its unemployment. I choose why it might not. Okay. So I wrote, imposition of tariffs by a country might not reduce unemployment based on the following reasons. 1, tariffs on raw materials are imported too, because you're talking about importation. So if raw materials have to be imported from other countries, the price of importation would decrease. So cost of production for firms importing raw materials would rise, meaning that they have to increase their cost, or they have to increase their prices. Increasing their prices would increase their revenue. Yes or no? And if increasing their prices would reduce their revenue.
Cost push inflation.
No, cost push inflation, but revenue would fall. And if revenue falls, firms might not have any other choice than to reduce the numbers of workers. Is unemployment reducing or increasing? It's increasing.
Yeah.
So that's the first point. The second point, I said this may lead to higher prices for making, so the demand will fall. I talked about that. The third point is a fall in demand reduces the revenue for which in turn allow firms to reduce their workforce. Unemployment increases. Then other countries might retaliate.
Yeah.
Because you are imposing tariffs. They might also impose tariffs on your own exports. So retaliation becomes a problem. And if you are unable to export, exporting firms in your country would have to reduce their workforce because they are not making revenue. Is it clear?
Yes.
So that's question 3 done. We'll go to question 4. Are you there?
Yeah.
They said in March 2017, Peru was hit by floods and the strongest winds in decades. Roads, bridges, houses, and capital goods were destroyed. It is expected that the damage caused will affect Peru's Human Development Index and economic growth rate. In 2016, Peru experienced a 4% economic growth rate, which was higher than the growth rate of the USA. Define a capital good. When you talk about capital goods, these are human-made goods that are used to produce other goods. Clear?
Yes.
The second question says, explain 2 causes of an increase in a country's HDI. An increase in HDI could be as a result of an increase in the GDP.
Or increase the living standard.
Yeah, an increase in the living standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also it could, yes, an increase in living standard, and also it could be as a result of improvement in education.
Or decreasing your income tax income.
Tax income would increase the HDI, Human Development Index. Yes, it's good. It's good because yes, it's good. It's good because when the tax income reduces, disposable income increases, living standard improves, HDI will increase. Clear?
Okay.
So go to question C. Analyze using a production possibility curve. He said, analyze using a production possibility curve to analyze using a production possibility curve diagram the effect of damaging weather on the country. So when we talk about production possibility curve, we're talking about the maximum of goods and services that can be produced if all resources are fully utilized. That means the combination of goods and services that can be produced if all resources are fully utilized or employed. Yes, that is what production possibility curve is. So a damaging weather condition would shift the production possibility curve inward. It will shift the production possibility curve inward.
Why? So
the poor weather condition will reduce output.
Oh yeah.
Based on what is said here, output will reduce. As output reduces, it is an inward shift. So the PPC curve will shift inward. Look at it. It's an inward shift.
Yes.
Did you see it? Inward shift. So the PPC curve will shift inward as output will reduce. Clear, right?
Yes.
So as output reduces, what happens? Bad weather conditions has caused it to reduce our output. So resources that are available will not be enough to produce in that country anymore. Is it clear?
Yes.
So that is PPC. We go to question D. Right?
Yeah, D.
Okay. They said, discuss whether countries with a high gross domestic product, GDP per head, will have a faster rate of economic growth than countries with a low GDP per head. I said yes, based on the following reason. First, I explain GDP per head, which is GDP divided by the total population. Done. That's the first point. Then the country with higher GDP per head would have a faster rate of economic growth than countries with low GDP per head, based on the following reason. One, they are likely to have a better healthcare facility, which means they have healthy workers. And having healthy workers will increase productivity.
Yes.
So increasing productivity will increase output. That's the first point I make. The second point is that this means that workers are likely to be more productive and effective, which is good for the economy.
Yes.
The third point is about the country. I said a country with high GDP per head may have better education, which may improve the skills and expertise of workers. So having better education or improved education would increase the ways in which you do things, and that increases your output. Then the fourth point I make is about a country with high GDP per head would be able to invest in technology. Investing in technology would make your output to be done faster, and your cost of production would fall, which might increase your export. And if your export increases, your balance of payment would improve, leading to economic growth. Is it clear? So that's all about that question. Done.
Yes.